apparently we are decimating some Houthis, and I don't know who these people are. They sound like Star Wars characters. The Red Sea, where is that? I don't know anything about any of this stuff, but I bet you Josh Hammer does. And by the way, I know you love when Josh Hammer joins us, host of America on Trial. It's time to go purchase Israel and Civilization, Josh Hammer's book. Fascinating, fascinating read. Highly recommended. Israel and Civilization. Go pick yourself up a copy. Okay, Josh. The Houthis, they sound weird. Who are they?
Jesse, great to be with you. And let me just emphasize one more time. The book comes out tomorrow, Israel and Civilization, the Fate of the Jewish Nation, the Destiny of the West. So order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Jesse, as of today, it was literally the #3 book on all of Amazon, which feels totally surreal to even say those words. So let's keep the momentum going, guys. Really would appreciate it. So the Houthis are mentioned in Israel and Civilization a little bit, as the case may be there. The Houthis are basically 21st century pirates. You know, Jesse, America, our first two wars after the Revolutionary War against the British, you know, people typically skip from the Revolutionary War to the War of 1812, basically a rematch against the British there. But there were actually two wars against Muslim pirates there in the intermediary years. And it was called the First Barbary War and the Second Barbary War. Well, the Houthis are basically just the 21st century version of that. They are radical Islamists there in Yemen. They are one half of the Yemeni civil war that has been tearing that country completely asunder at the seams for better part of a decade and a half now. The relevant part for present purposes is that they're controlled by Iran. The Houthis take their orders from Iran. This is not a particularly pleasant group. They literally have a motto that is publicly available. You can Google it. It says, "Glory to Allah, death to the Jews, death to Israel, death to America." I mean, it's one of those types of organizations. I mean, they're pretty clear about what they actually believe. And from an American perspective, Jesse, They have been firing completely indiscriminately on American ships, commercial vessels, military vessels for the better part of a year and a half now. And the Red Sea is actually one of the world's most important waterways. Roughly 10 to 20% at minimum of global trade actually flows through the Red Sea. So freedom of navigation on the high seas is actually one of the most important things that you can literally have in a world. If it's going to be any foreign relations, ships have to be able to travel freely. You can't have modern Islamist Barbary-style pirates. So what Donald Trump is doing here is kind of a quintessential use of Trumpian foreign policy. This is classic Donald Trump realism. He is not the isolationist that people make him out to be. He's obviously not a neoconservative either. He is in the broad space of foreign policy that most Americans are, that I am too, actually. We want to strike the bad dudes. We want to prevent them from indiscriminately firing on our ships, on our sailors, on our Marines there. We also don't want to go in and start sending in the 101st Airborne and start trying to spread democracy. That doesn't work either there. There was a very reasonable middle ground here for foreign policy. I actually have an entire chapter in the book on this, Jesse. It's chapter 7 of Israel and Civilization, making the MAGA America First case for a prudential U.S.-Israel relationship, explaining the Abraham Accords, this wonderful Trump-Netanyahu diplomatic achievement in that broader context there. So all the pieces fit together there, but I personally was very happy to see Donald Trump say this about the Houthis there. The real question, Jesse, obviously, is ultimately what happens with Iran. They are the patrons of the Houthis. They are the ultimate source of so much chaos in the region. But for now, I think these limited strikes on the Houthis are actually a very good idea.
All right, let's do a little rewind, shall we, since you know a bit about the history of all this stuff. Obviously, as you pointed out, props to them for their honesty on who they dislike and what their mission set happens to be. But what is their problem with Israel, and what is their problem with us? What's their issue?
Well, their problem with the Jews and the Christians, Jesse, is nothing less than the Sharia supremacist war with Western civilization. I mean, this actually goes really back to my book as well. I mean, if you look back at the history of radical Islam, Jesse, there is a long and at times oftentimes inglorious history of various pockets of the Islamic world fundamentally trying to kill the West, trying to kill Christians, Jews. I mean, you know, go back and look at the siege of Vienna. I mean, in the mid 17th century, when radical fanatical Muslims made it all the way into the heart of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. I mean, that was the furthest they ended up getting in there. whether it's that, whether it's the Barbary Wars that I mentioned there. Unfortunately, largely throughout history, Christians and Jews have oftentimes found themselves in inextricable conflict with radical fanatical Muslims. Not every Muslim, obviously. I'm not going to get accused of being an Islamophobe, but specifically here, Sharia supremacist radical forces there. And in the book, Jesse, I fundamentally argue that there are three separate hegemonic forces that are seeking to destroy what we call Western civilization. I argue that Western civilization and the Bible are basically one and the same. That Western civilization was actually forged with God's revelation to Moses and the Israelites at Mount Sinai. And all that we take for granted today when it comes to Western ethics and Western values, Western law, politics, our Constitution, all of it is ultimately downstream of these biblical precepts and these biblical truths there. So the three threats that are trying to destroy us both, Jews and Christians, the two biblical religions alike, are in no particular order wokeism, Islamism, that's where the Houthis fit in here, and then global neoliberalism. It's basically kind of like John Lennon's Imagine, Jesse. I mean, kind of this liberal dystopia, let's just eradicate all the borders, the religions there. It's the homogenizing imperative. So Jews and Christians, who are, again, the two biblical religions, we oppose all three of those forces. And the book ultimately calls, Jesse, for a Jewish-Christian ecumenical biblical restoration, to restore the Bible, to make biblical nationalism great again throughout the West, because only a West that understands where it comes from is going to have the spine and the fortitude and the courage to take down these three very dangerous threats: wokeism, Islamism, and global neoliberalism. That's the fundamental argument in the book, Israel and Civilization.
Josh, Joe Biden famously took this group off of the terror list. Now, unsurprisingly, Trump put them right back on where they belong. But I want to go back to the Joe Biden move. That doesn't make any sense. Or if it does make sense, all the answers to why he would do such a thing are positively frightening. Could you maybe explain that to me?
Well, when Joe Biden, and by the way, Jesse, this was literally a day one action, if memory serves. It was literally on January 20th or maybe January 21st, 2021. I mean, this is one of his first major policy initiatives. I mean, let's try to make the Americans, fatten the wallet, the paycheck a little bit. Maybe let's secure the border. No. We're literally going to go in there day one, guns blazing, and take the Houthis off the foreign terrorist organization. I mean, who thinks these things? I mean, it's just totally evil and satanic, frankly. So he removes them from the State Department foreign terrorist organization to a slightly lesser category, specially designated terrorist group or something like that there, which basically means that they are less prone to financial sanctions. All of this, though, Jesse, was ultimately predicated towards the Biden-Harris administration's song and dance routine with the Iranian regime. It was all in service of trying to secure a second nuclear deal after Donald Trump admirably pulled out of Barack Obama's horrible Iran nuclear deal the first time around there. Joe Biden tried to get us back in. That's all that was going on here. And that's frankly all that was going on there throughout Joe Biden's entire presidency. I mean, a lot of his conduct during the Israel-Hamas war was also predicated towards trying to appease Iran. Now, why the Democrats and the modern Democratic Party cares so much about appeasing Iran? Interesting question. I'm actually to this day not entirely sure that I have a great answer to that question, other than the fact that Democratic Party foreign policy all too often is genuinely evil in terms of supporting very bad people and opposing good people. But beyond that, I don't have a whole lot to offer. But for one reason or another, the modern Democratic Party is genuinely obsessed with placating and appeasing Iran at any and all costs. That's where the Houthis fit in here there. But fortunately, Trump, one of his many wonderful moves that he's made over the past 2 months, he brought the Houthis back to the State Department recognized foreign terrorist organization list. They will be sanctioned the crap out of. And now, Jesse, thanks to our commander in chief, they're also being bombed the crap out of as well. I say good news on all fronts.
Yeah, rough time to be a Houthi. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it, brother. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.